Zoe Stoller, who uses the pronouns they, she, he, describing themselves as gender fluid within the non-binary umbrella, correct?
And
yes.
Jessica Taylor is here from the Renfrew Center, which specializes in eating disorders impacting adolescents. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this. What were you, the eating disorder, does that come from trying to change your body?
So eating disorders can serve various purposes for different people. For my own self, in understanding my gender dysphoria, I have realized that I was trying to change my body in order to be perceived differently because I was very uncomfortable with people reading me as a woman
right.
When I knew deep down that that's not who I was. But when I was growing up, I didn't really have the language to understand that and articulate that, and I didn't know how to then help myself in healthy and safe ways. And so I turned to my eating disorder in order to try to have some control and to tackle this. But now that I've really come to understand my non-binary identity and my gender, and I have the language for it, I've realized that I don't have to use eating disorder behaviors in order to change my body. I can find other ways to affirm myself.
Okay. And we're even learning too, because we were discussing this in commercial break, how you say gender dysphoria, and then you have body dysmorphia. What is the difference, and how do we break that down?
Yeah, gender dysmorphia is really a focus on appearance. I just cannot be okay with how I'm feeling and looking, and it's a preoccupation with that. Perceived flaws that other people may not see, right? And gender dysphoria is really a misalignment with who I am as a person. I do not align with the body that I was born into, and that creates a dysphoric feeling. It's very different than dysmorphia, where it's like a perceived flaw.
How common is this, like an eating disorder?
Eating disorder, especially for our LGBTQ youth, it's definitely more prevalent in LGBTQ community at large, adults included, but youth statistically is 54% more likely to have an eating disorder that's diagnosed, and 72% more likely with clinical kind of evaluation that they suspect it's at a threshold of diagnosis. And then if we add even further into that, like minority groups, Latino community and people of color are often at a much higher precedent if they're also LGBTQ, and our trans folks are also much, much higher prevalency, 75% of eating disorder.
And it sounds like that's something that needs to be addressed when seeking care, right? Those are factors you have to take into consideration.
Must know those. Those are risk factors that when they present to us for treatment that we really have to take into account and bring into their gender affirming care. We're really trying to make them be visible, be attuned to, make sure that we're speaking the language that Zoe now has found, because that's actually what creates the healing process.
How important was that for you, Zoe, getting that gender affirming care?
So essential. Gender affirming care saves lives for so many people, and for me that's no exception. I definitely struggled deeply with my mental health, with eating disorder behaviors for much of my life, and of course recovery is not linear, so there's always ups and downs even today. But I know that where I am now, having gender affirming care, having language to understand myself, having people who affirm me, it's made a world of a difference.
So it's saved your life?
It has saved my life, yes.
And we're grateful that you're sharing your story. What has the reaction been? Because on TikTok, because that's the great thing about social media. It's like so many people say, oh, I can relate to this, or I know exactly what this feels like.
Yes, and that's exactly why I love to use social media to share my own story, because I have been so positively impacted by others who have done the same thing. It really means so much to see that you're not alone in this, because when you're struggling, when you're deep in depression or eating disorder behaviors, you can feel so alone, and you can feel like nobody could possibly understand. But as we see, that's not the case at all. And I love to share my story and help other people realize that I struggle with this too, and I understand.
You're awesome.
You're awesome.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for the work that you guys are doing.
And we'll come right back.